when I look in at the stories in the Bible and when I hear other people's testimonies, honestly, it's often once the bow is tied up and it's once like everything is finished and we look back and we're like, oh, that was easy. Like the moment we have that baby, like we forget about all the false alarms, all the cramps, all the
Yes.
just everything. We just are so we celebrate forevermore. We celebrate that birthday. We don't celebrate all the journey that got there. And so much of my testimony, like when I look on, it's easy to look back that oh, Abraham just waited this many years. Well, that was torturous,
Yeah.
those years of waiting. And I have felt a particular call in my life to be open about the struggle as I'm going along, because we people can get a false sense of, oh, that was easy for them, or they just made this quick jump into this thing. And no, I'm not okay in the journey. I have my struggles. I have things I wonder about. I have questions. I have a not very polished elevator speech about what I'm going to be doing in March. It's just to be real about where I am, because I feel like by being real, it opens us up to community and talking and recognizing that we don't have it together. And
Yes.
let's figure it out and let's walk hand in hand until we get there.
Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet the Lord invites us to live out our God-given purpose now in the midst of the madness. So let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today with clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing.
Hello and welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer. We are revisiting one of my favorites. Periodically, I go through and I'm like, who did I just love talking to? And of course, it's basically everyone because I don't have people on unless I really enjoy them. But the Lord just highlights people here and there that I reach back out to. So we've got Heather Day on again. Hello, Heather.
Hi, Anna. I'm so glad to be here.
It's so fun. It's just we're buds already, so it's just great to kind of pick up again. So I'm going to preview and just say if you haven't listened to Heather and I's conversation from probably last summer of 2025-ish, probably, her book Money in the Spirit is amazing, and we had a really powerful conversation around financial stewardship from the lens of truly submitting your finances to the Lord and operating in the fruits of the Spirit around money. So you might just want to press pause right now and scramble over and listen to that. But Heather, just tell us a little bit more about who you are and what life is looking like right now.
Yeah, so oh man, so much has happened since we talked last. I like you. I was so excited to come on today because I just feel like we were instant besties. I'm
Yeah,
glad to be
I
on
know.
here.
Me too.
But I am yes, Money and Spirit was my first book. I'm working on a second one that's more of a passion project, just a story about a woman in our community. But I'm a mom to 2 kids. I've got Emma, who just turned 19 and is my freshman in college. I've got a 14-year-old son who keeps me on my toes, and my husband Robert will be celebrating our 25th anniversary in just a few weeks.
That's amazing. I mean, well, now I'm like, well, I want to hear all about 25 years of marriage too. But talk to me about, and I want to talk about the teenage thing.
Yes,
Oh my gosh. Okay,
there's
but
so much.
I know. I'm like, stay on point, Anna. We had a topic that we'd already decided. Okay, so that's the family life. Anything that you want to share? I know. So we're recording this. I'll just be revelatory. We're recording this in November, and a lot
Yes.
will be expanding in Heather's life over the coming months. So be sure to check the show notes for all the current stuff because that's going to be the most up to date. Anything that you want to share otherwise about life?
Yeah, so I'm gonna speak into the future because right now I'm like like how you go when I was a kid. I remember like that you're on the edge of a high dive and you're like terrified, but you're like As soon as you make the leap, you're so proud of yourself that you did that. I'm currently on the edge of the board, and I'm hoping when this lands in March, I'll be like, that was so worth it because I am launching my business, Daylight Creative, and this has been just an exciting thing coming up. I felt like the spirit, God's spirit, just stirring within me that He had something else for me to do, and I've wrestled with that for like a year now, and I'm just excited to see what doors God opens. I'm looking to do more writing, more speaking, helping people, particularly in ministry, with learning how to become better communicators through marketing, communication. My real problem is narrowing that down because I just get so excited about all of those topics. But yeah, I'm hoping, in March it'll be fun to listen to and just see where I'm at that point because I'm living in faith right now that God has called me to do this, and what He asked me to do, He'll pave the way.
That's right. That's right. There's that adage, he doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I see the call, Heather, and I see how he's already built so much in you. It's going to be really fun to see how he draws this all together. And, probably by the time this airs, you're going to be able to say in a sentence what you're all about and whom you're serving. But there
Right.
is that kind of just uncertainty when we just start out where it's like, I'm willing to do a thing and I have no idea what it's going to really look like. So
This has
just,
been a constant in my life that every time I felt God lead me somewhere, it was always like it was a stretch.
yeah.
I like, oh gosh, how can I possibly do that? And yet, like I feel like God's will is clearer in the rear view.
Yes.
When I'm looking forward, it just feels like a blurry mess of like, okay, I'm just gonna walk and see what happens. But when I look in the rear view, I'm like, well, how did I miss that? That made
Yeah.
complete sense.
Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you real quick. Where daylight came from, obviously, is a play on my name, but also it's this. I've told the story of my son and I. What my family goes camping, and when my son and I, when he was probably about 4 or 5, we were going camping and we were walking and we were out in the country and it was pitch dark and I just had a little camping lantern we were walking, and I couldn't see more than a few feet around me. I could just see the path directly beside me, and I couldn't see what was in the woods. I probably wouldn't want to know what was in the woods.
All right.
But I had just the light I needed to take the few steps in front of us. And we were walking hand in hand and I led him to where he needed to go. And that has been my experience and what I'm clinging on to now that He lights the path for just what I need to know next. That He makes, Isaiah says He makes the night like the like noon, that just as we follow in His path and be open, He will show us what we need to know when we need to know it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And it reminds me too of what you're talking about the place that you are right now, where in hindsight we can see it all, right? Because it's all been
Right.
written, but this place that you're operating in that I think he often calls his children into, we don't get to see the whole thing.
Right.
And, I think about like marriage or parenting, and if we really were to, that moment where you say yes to your spouse, like, we're going to do this thing. If we actually were given the script of what was coming, like, I say yes to heartbreak in this area, I say yes to disappointment here, I say yes to frustration here, and not ever looking like we hoped it would, and all these good things too. But it's like, man, if
Mhm.
we really saw that list as it was going to play out over the coming decades, would we really be like, would we be willing to sign up for the walk, probably
Right.
not like it's going to be
No.
like like what we because we can't see all the great things. It's kind of like,
Right.
I talk to my friends who are waiting for their babies, like, who are expecting, and it's like, if you just look at other people's children, you see like all the awful stuff of how they're like not
Right.
behaving and they're screaming, but you
Right.
can't appreciate the love that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, absolutely. And I mean, okay. And to tie this in, we were talking about authenticity and,
Oh
that
yeah,
being a,
that's where we're really going, guys. That's where, friend, if you were wondering what's this conversation going to be about, first of all, like, I mean, we do Life Brave here. So Heather, everything you're talking about, it's just everything that we need to be encouraged in. But then
Yeah,
yes, we're
but
actually talking
but
about
to
being
tie it in,
authentic. So tie it in.
but it's just a natural transition into that because when I look in at the stories in the Bible and when I hear other people's testimonies, honestly, it's often once the bow is tied up and it's once like everything is finished and we look back and we're like, oh, that was easy. Like the moment we have that baby, like we
Yeah.
forget about all the false alarms, all the cramps, all the
Yes.
just everything. We just are so we celebrate forevermore. We celebrate that birthday. We don't celebrate all the journey that got there. And so much of my testimony, like when I look on, it's easy to look back that oh, Abraham just waited this many years. Well, that was torturous,
Yeah.
those years of waiting. And I have felt a particular call in my life to be open about the struggle as I'm going along because we people can get a false sense of, oh, that was easy for them, or they just made this quick jump into this thing. And no, I'm not okay in the journey. I have my struggles. I have things I wonder about. I have questions. I have a not very polished elevator speech about what I'm going to be doing in March. It's just to be real about where I am because I feel like by being real, it opens us up to community and talking and recognizing that we don't have it together. And
Yes.
let's figure it out and let's walk hand in hand until we get there.
Yeah. And as you were talking, I'm like, oh, no wonder I was so excited about this conversation because I don't know that I really had it buttoned up, Heather, when you and I first talked, but I've gotten really dialed in on the core values that I hold that are just all over this podcast. And they are courage, stewardship, and then belonging. And
Mhm.
really, most importantly, belonging, which I think authenticity, belonging is not possible without authenticity, would be my
Right.
claim. Does that,
Yeah.
would you say that as coming from
I
the lens of authenticity?
Yeah, 100%. We can't, like, if we're hiding things and we're so afraid of people getting up too close and noticing the issues we've got going on, or if we pretend that we've got it all together, we can't really open ourselves up to, uh, we're denying an invitation to come get to know me and get to know who I am. And we're also denying the ability to truly minister to people where they're at because we seem unapproachable. We've got this hard shell on that looks like well we wouldn't possibly relate because that person's got it all together and I don't. So once we start to break
Yes.
down that false barrier, it really opens us up to some beautiful relationships and some beautiful work that God can do on our hearts.
I want to underline that and like circle it. What you said, I'm gonna paraphrase it back. You tell me if I've got it. Effectively what you said is we are ineffective in ministry if we are not willing to be authentic.
Yes, yes, yeah. I Somebody gave me a she had said to me a few years ago, she said, she gave me a Superwoman cup. And she said, I feel I look up to you because you've always got it together and all these kind of stuff. And in some ways it was flattering, but also it broke my heart because she was younger than me. And I thought, well, gosh, if she thinks that I've got it all together, then I've created an unrealistic standard for her. I want to make sure, not that I'm just like laying my mess out there for everybody, but also that it's clear that none of us are perfect. Only Christ is perfect. We're just
Yes.
doing our best to follow him and strive to be more like him. And yeah, I just think that the more real we are about that, it really opens up some beautiful opportunities.
So this brings to mind something that I would love your thoughts on because I think there's the ditch of showing so much mess where people feel like they need to kind of come around us. And then there's
Yeah,
the other ditch of like got it all together. And I laugh sometimes because I'll have people like respond to my emails or on my reels and be like, "Oh, I'm praying for you." I'm like, "Actually, I'm fine." Like, but because I kind of peel back the curtain,
right.
I think sometimes people think like I'm not okay or that I need something, and really it's just like
Yeah,
I'm kind of happy to be messy in front of you guys and share like here, there's this type of thing I'm struggling with, or there's this thing I'm navigating. So what would you, how do we find where to sit on all that? Because part of me is like, am I And I think when I think of like what part of why I laugh is because it's like I know I'm not reaching out from a place of need, but reaching out to try to like offer a foothold of someone else going, oh, that's where I am too. That feels good. But
Right.
then like what would you say, how do we know where we are on that spectrum within
Um,
ourselves, recognizing people may think whatever they think, but within ourselves?
Right. Well, that's such a good question because what I'm not talking about is trauma dumping,
Yeah.
where where um, I don't know if this is a trend or whatever, but they're really good at trauma dumping with other people. And this is not about that, although that's important with your really close circle. It's important that you have somebody that can, whether it's your spouse or a dear friend, a therapist, everybody needs somebody that they can just say the unfiltered, snot's coming out of your nose as you're talking about the struggle. Like that's different than what I'm talking about. Important but different. What I think I'm talking about here is just that, like, I don't pretend to be something that I'm not. I don't pretend to have it all together, or if I don't know the answer, try to just like pretend I've got the answer. I say, you know what, I'm not sure on that, but I'll find out. Or if somebody says, I'm going through I'm going through a marital struggle. I'm not going to tell an acquaintance about the intricacies of arguments that Robert and have had. That's just not what I'm going to do. But I can share that, you know what? I'm sorry you're going through that. We all have moments where we just can't seem to get on the same page with our husbands. So there's still maintaining that boundary of not oversharing to people, a that have not earned our level of trust there, but also like not putting not letting them or making them carry the weight of our problems. You know?
There it is. There it is. I think that's that when you said that, I was like, that's it. That's it. Like, do they now, if someone, and of course, people are going to people, so it might be that your intention was not this, and then it's like just if it's a friend, maybe there's a learning there of just okay, if I share a little bit, they're going to try to circle the wagons and make me feel better because that feels safer for them,
Right.
or I have people in my life where I'll say something and then I'm coming for support and then they'll share their stuff and now I'm like, oh well, now I'm out of mine and I'm in theirs. Or
Right.
um but then there's also that part of like I think we've all been on the receiving end where we share someone and something and someone goes, I have no idea what that would be like. That sounds terrible. And you're like, oh, I don't feel better somehow.
Well,
But
I
what
think
you
it's also
said of like they need to not they shouldn't feel like they should be carrying it, but that
right.
there's that feeling of being met and seen.
Right. I think if, again, like what the needing to share our deepest needs with others, that's we're sharing in some of those cases because we need to be fed and we need to be healed and we need to receive. But when I talk about authenticity, well, I think is like we're offering it as a gift. We're offering it as throwing them a lifeline to say, girl, you got this. I've been there too, and I promise you that there's hope. That's what it is. It's a gift. It's not, I'm not throwing my rope so that so that they then have to pull me up too. That's just not productive. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
That's so good.
The
No,
other thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go. You go.
I
I
was
know what we're going to cover. We'll cover it in a minute.
Yeah, so I was just going to say too, I think that there's also we have to be wise as in leadership and ministry and be wise about the things that we put on the shoulders of those we lead. So again, not putting up false barriers, not pretending to be something we're not, but at the same time, like if I come in every day to work and I talk about all the ways my life is falling apart. And it's not, by the way. I feel like I should clarify life is good. But if I'm coming in and every day they're hearing a new issue that Heather is struggling to get herself together, she's a hot mess, then they're not going to have a whole lot of confidence in my ability to lead them and keep it together. And I might create barriers of, I don't want to take this to Heather because I don't want to add to the pile. So, and in ministry too, like there is something to be said for yes, being vulnerable, but not oversharing not oversharing to the people that you're trying to minister and shepherd. And again, making sure that they feel safe, they feel loved, they feel that you're an approachable person, but they don't feel like you're fragile and they can't come
Yes.
to you.
The role is so important, and you actually gave me clarity on something that just kind of blew my mind. So I'll share one concept of what you said first. I worked with a coach during COVID, and every time I got on the phone with this coach, it was like, just kind of starting off the conversation, how are you? Every time we got on the phone, I'm okay. And
Yeah,
immediately now I'm paying someone who I don't feel comfortable putting anything else on, you
right.
know? And but what I feel like I'm hearing in what you're saying, and tell me if this is right, because it's blowing my mind a little bit. It is critical that we be authentic. It is critical that we be mindful of the role that we carry.
Yes.
But here's what I'm wondering, and tell me if I've got it. What it brought to mind is it's like, if I'm authentic somewhere, then I can show up in maybe a little bit of a stronger position elsewhere. So in other words, like I think
Yes.
about a pastor. If the pastor or someone in ministry, if the pastor is showing up every Sunday and sharing all their struggles with the congregation, that's going to create that destabilizing that you're talking about. Well, now
Right.
if he's messy, then oh gosh, I need to be there for him, and what can we do?
Right.
This isn't good. Whereas if I'm mindful of my role and I go to my safe places, then I'm ensuring that I don't kind of put myself in the way of becoming in that kind of idolatry place of like the pastor never falls, the pastor also never
Right.
gets support, which leaves the door open for all the problems that can happen
Right.
if you don't get support. So I'm mindful to be fully revelatory, very disclosing with my struggles with my 3 to 5 closest, so
Right.
that I can show up in an appropriate amount of composure, maybe honest
Right.
composure, like, hey, it's a
Right.
hard season, and it's all about Jesus, you know what I mean? Like, keep on
Yeah.
keeping on. Is that kind of what you're saying? Would that do it?
Absolutely. I think that's clarifying. And another way to think of it is even like how we are in our families. So as a mom and as a wife, my husband is there to be my life partner and to share my deepest concerns, my deepest fears. I'm not going to put that on my kids. If we're in the middle of a storm, I'm not going to say, "Yeah, you should be scared. We could be blown off the earth right now."
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Although I may be worried about the howling wind outside. But in that moment, my job as a mother is to make them feel safe and secure and that we're going to be okay. Even if inside I'm trembling and wondering if we're going to be. I'm projecting what they need in that moment and serving them. But I'm able to do that because I can be authentic with my life partner about how what the real fears are. We could be a united front with them and create a safe space for the people that we love and serve.
Yes, that's so good. And I mean, this is something my husband and I have been navigating something in a financial thing, like one of our investments, that's just required a lot of conversation. And we're willing, like, it's been really interesting to navigate because we've we've had some of it in front of the children because we're pretty open with them about, well, these are the things that you need to work through with a business. But then the hardest stuff has been behind closed doors. And,
Right.
we've really learned over the years, like locked doors. And one
Right.
of my children in particular is like, but what are you talking about? What are you talking? Like, what
Yes.
specifically is happening?
Yeah.
And I mean, I just like, yeah,
Yeah.
Daddy and I are a different unit. Like, we're
Yeah.
not all kind of sharing together what's going on. This Daddy and
Right.
I are a united front, and we share everything with each other, and we share
Yeah.
some things with you.
Right.
And that's as it should be. Like, you don't need to know everything because, gosh, like, what I just think about how hard it is, in our social media world and our news world, how hard it is to know things we can do nothing about.
Right.
And I wonder if that's a part of this conversation too, is like, we've got our closest who can pray. And
Hmm.
then we don't all need to know everybody's everything because it's it's crippling at times to see the
Yeah.
amount of struggle. So
Right.
like, it's good for my children not to know all the gory
Right.
details of,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever we're working through as a couple, because they can't do anything about it.
Right. It's true. And then what I'm realizing now, as I mentioned, like I said, my daughter is 19. That changes over time. I'm still going to be protective of certain things, but there's also like this shift of preparing her for adulthood and marriage and being a mother and opening the door just a little bit cracked more to say, okay, I'm not going to tell you everything, but I do want you to know, like, it's okay to argue with your spouse and come out on the other side. You know what I mean? So I find this interesting balance of, as my daughter like is transitioning from the person where I make all of her decisions to like she's got free reign and I'm still her mother, but more of a friendship. I've got to toe that line between being real and authentic with her, but also preparing her for what's to come for her.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, it really, there's such a sense of season. So it's not just what's the relationship, but what's the season of the relationship.
Right.
Ugh.
And the only advice I could give on that is just pray, 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 for wisdom, because it's so easy to get it wrong on that. But then the other piece of that, pray for wisdom, show grace, and ask forgiveness. We're not going to always get it right. Sometimes we might overshare, or sometimes we should have shared more. So show grace for yourself that we're figuring this out as we go, and then ask forgiveness where we fall short.
Hey, friend, are you looking for a peaceful getaway where you can just breathe? A backdrop to your next hilarious girls' weekend? Or the destination for that crazy family trip? If so, our family would be honored to host you at our sweet retreat, Just Like Paradise. Located a block from the beach in beautiful family and dog friendly Oak Island, our home is perfect for families, group retreats, or even a solo or couples getaway. You know you need it. After years of praying over this home and asking others to do the same, peace is just baked into the walls. From the Three Seasons back porch to the fire pit, from the hot tub to the kids' room fully stocked with all the games, we've thought of everything to give you just the getaway you've been looking for. Simply send me a text at 704-810-1181 to skip the fees and enjoy an additional 10% discount on your next stay. Just mention the podcast. I've got you covered. We can't wait to host you at Just Like Paradise. So Heather, you offered a visual in the blog post that gave rise to this conversation, just about how authenticity looks. Can you talk about the sweater?
Yes. I have this sweater I love, and I like it's a black sweater. There's nothing super special about it, but it's just a black cardigan. It's got like these silver buttons on the sleeve. Like somebody who is very fashionista complimented me on one time, and so I'm like, oh, because I'm not like a stylish person. So they complimented me on this, and it's one of those things that keeps me warm. It hides my my arms. It's slimming. It can dress something up, like if I've got a sleeveless dress. But it looks real great. But except that I've had it so long that it's really worn down. Like so the buttons are tarnished. And if I hold my arms up, like the elbows, like you can see through the skin on my elbows. And there's a hole there's a hole that started out small in the right pocket, but it's got big enough now that if I put my cell phone in there, it will literally fall through the hole. So, this has not stopped me from wearing said sweater, but I just don't let people get too close.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that I'm a lot like that sometimes. Is that like I'm threadbare and I'm worn out and I'm looking a little raggedy, but I try to pretend that I've got it all together. And as long as I don't let people get too close, they can think, oh, she's really got it together. But
Yeah.
again, that's not helpful for anyone. So I want again walking that fine line of not oversharing and not trauma dumping, but at the same time allowing people to see that, okay, she's one of us. She's like us. She's a person too who does not get it right in motherhood, who does not always the greatest wife, who is not always has all the answers in her job, that she has to ask questions to.
Yes. Well, and what it made me think when you were talking is, okay, so there's the place that we know the Lord's inviting us out of, that we're kind of saying, hey, we don't have to live here, which is let's allow people to get close enough to see the threadbare sweater, But then I also think of Jesus had, the 1 and the 3 and the 12 and the 72 and then the crowd. And
Right.
so there's also this element that's like, there are people who, like, we want some people to literally be able to touch the sweater.
Right.
And, like our husband can put his hand in the pocket and feel the hole and you can laugh about it.
Right.
And then there's, or close friends or whatever it
Right.
is. And then there are those who can see that maybe the buttons are tarnished and it's a little threadbare. And then there's the crowd, and maybe the crowd is just told that it's a threadbare sweater.
Right.
It's kind of like, hey, I love the sweater. Thanks so much. I've had it so long you can see through the arms, but I love it so, that it's just
Right.
like it's something that we're not afraid to share, but that
Yeah.
there will still be that sense of proximity. Is that what would you say about that sense of
Yeah, absolutely.
circles?
I think that that's all true. It's that discernment. And actually where that blog came from was I was actually doing this as a lesson for a youth group, and for that particular group, I felt like it was important for them to know that they could be real too. That it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say like I really home life's not so good, or I need to talk to somebody. And so I know that in, just statistics alone, I know there's people listening right now who are trying to carry all those burdens on their own, and they are trying to keep it hidden and it's falling more and more apart. And so I feel like you have to have that permission and know it's okay to not be okay. And it has nothing to do with your faith. It has nothing to do with how much Jesus loves you. That it's okay to talk to a trusted advisor, a trusted friend, a parent, a pastor, a therapist, and say, I need help because I can't keep this mess hidden.
And so if someone's sitting on the other side of this podcast and starting to maybe tear up and they don't know where to go,
Yeah.
where do you start?
Um, I remember being there. I remember when my daughter was first born and I experienced postpartum, and I thought I felt in such a hole, and I felt like I shouldn't feel this way, and um, I felt like I should be happy. I feel like I should be grateful. And I felt like I don't know what to do about this. And I have everything in the world. Why am I in such darkness? And in one moment of bravery, I talked to a friend at work, and she's like, girl, I've been there. And so I would just I know, again, it feels like, just to go back to where we were, it feels like your toes are on the edge of the high dive. But just in one moment of bravery, talk to somebody, anybody that you trust that can just help you figure out what the next step is. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to lay it all out there. Um, from there, like for me, and this is not the answer for everyone, but for me, I literally took a piece of paper with what I was feeling to my doctor and showed him the paper of things I couldn't even find a way to say out loud. And my doctor was able to give me, for me, he was able to give me medication. I got some counseling that helped me through that time. And I look back, and it was so transformational, but it just took, um, I promise you, if you find someone that you can trust and you can just open up, I think the number one lie the devil likes to tell us is that we're all alone and nobody would understand.
Yeah.
But you would be surprised how many people around you will understand and who just want to do whatever they can to get you the help that you need.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think one of the other lies that we can come to believe is, we were kind of, just saying like, don't trauma dump. Like if no one knows, then you're
Right.
not trauma dumping. Right.
No,
Let me just say,
no,
and typically the one who is worried about trauma dumping is not the one who's trauma dumping.
no.
Right? Right? And
Yes.
typically the one who's like, "Oh, I'm just keeping it." If you're telling people that you're just keeping it real when they're like, "That was kind of a lot," then then maybe if 100 people know your business. I remember watching I used to like the talk shows like Maury Povich and all those,
Yes.
bless my heart. And there was a whole one about like this lady was a cashier at the grocery store, and she told people about her and her husband's romantic life at the grocery store, and he had a problem with it, and they decided to go work it out on Maury Povich. And so, like, if there's 100 people that know your
Right,
deepest wounds that are current and present, then my guess would be that it might be that 3 to 5 people need to know, and for you to really receive their love and
right.
trust. That
Yes,
it's like, it's not so much that, like, it's like if we're spreading it all around, it's because we're not actually receiving what the few people are willing to give,
right,
and so it's
right.
kind of leaking everywhere. But for the one who's like, nobody knows, maybe
Yeah,
maybe I tried to tell one person and I got shut
right,
down, I
right.
got told it was no big deal. A couple thoughts come to mind. I'd love to hear if you have anything else to add to this, Heather. First is, if it's a struggle that I'm walking through that directly impacts someone else, and I try to talk about it with that someone else, that's probably not going to be the most healing option,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because they're so close to it. And so I mean, I think about, like, I was having a lot of for me it was postpartum anxiety
Hmm.
after probably a few of my kids, but it was really bad after our last baby. And you know, my husband's living with it but can't see it in a way to support well, right? Someone else needs to be. It's not that he wasn't there for me, he very much was, but he was so close to it that it impacted him deeply. And
Yeah,
so, when I'm on the floor screaming that something's wrong with my mind, he doesn't know what to do, and really at a little distance is
right.
going to be the most productive help. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was also thinking that sometimes we want people to be the safe space and they're not in a healthy place themselves or have
Yeah.
a sense of understanding to be able to be that person for us.
Yeah.
So for some people, it might be like, okay, I tried. I tried to tell my spouse, or I tried to tell my friend, or I tried to tell my parent, and it didn't work. Try again with somebody else. I I remember again when I had the postpartum, I told my Robert or told my husband, and he's such a good husband. He's so wonderful, but he just didn't understand. He's like, "But you're glad we have a baby, right?" And so then I was back on the defense trying to prove that I'm not a terrible human being.
Hmm.
So again, like and sometimes like you said, just the people we want to be our safe space are just not in a place to do that. So try again and find those people who are the listeners and are able to get you the help that you need.
That's right. Yeah, and I love what you said of, like, you wrote it down, right?
Mhm.
Like, you wrote it down, and really, like, were willing to. I love what you said, a moment of bravery, and
Mhm.
just ask the Lord to provide the person for you,
Yeah.
because, like, it's kind of, we talk in here about, like, move your feet, right? So
Yeah.
maybe if you're in that place where you're like, I haven't told anybody this, pick 3 people. Say,
Hmm.
I'm gonna say this out loud 3 times, and just ask the Lord to help me get the support that I need. Because ultimately, like, yes, He is our sustainer and our provider. And I love, a friend of mine used to say, sometimes we need someone with skin on too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's gracious to give us that. Like, we need each other. And so, this is part of why we go through hard things, is so we can help someone else go through hard things.
For sure.
I mean, what would we do if the church? One of my friends was in the NICU with one of her kids, and she said, "Imagine if the church was never in the NICU. Like,
Mm.
just what a hard place it would be."
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Hmm. So,
Beautiful. Yeah.
okay. So we're gonna let people in. We're gonna let them see us as we really are. We're gonna do it in a way where we get the need met all the
Hmm.
way through. We're not just kind of leaking out on other people,
Hmm.
and receive. And then what's the result? What happens when we do that?
When we do that, we find true community. As you said, like God loves us and He wants to be our provider. He wants to be our source of peace. He wants to be our joy. But I've found that often He does His greatest work in serving me through putting people in my life who can be His light. You know, so I think back to just different circumstances I've been through in my life where somebody just popped in my office or dropped by or sent me an email that was just like, that was God. There's no way they could have come by at that moment or said that thing. They have no idea what they just said and how significant it is. So you open by opening yourself up, you open yourself to friendships and relationships, but you also open yourself up to seeing God at work.
Okay. So we're going to let people in. And
Mhm.
then, and you said something too. And I feel like this, sometimes we kind of need to look forward to what's next as well.
Mhm.
Because we start to think when we're struggling, it's always going to be this way.
Mhm.
But one of the things you said, and I think, we started off by talking about like when we're kind of in the place of ministry, we need to be revelatory. But then now we're talking about when we're in the hard space, we need to be
Mhm.
authentic as well. But then I feel like it's like I think we sometimes think of those as two different things, but I wonder if one's the gateway to the other of like when we open our mouth from the bottom of the pit, that's
Mhm.
that's also almost like the birthplace of a new ministry.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
resonate for you?
It does. And it makes me think of there's a third category I think that we need to be aware of. You've got the be authentic and share your struggles with those you need to, and to be able to shepherd and lead. But there's also like something to be said for we can't be that close person for everyone around us.
Yes, we need to talk about this. Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
So I I have had to overcome a little, not a little bit. I've had to overcome a lot of the savior complex of trying to to bear the responsibilities. I have to fix everybody else's problems, and
Mhm.
I have to be the one to hear them and listen to them and take and bear the weight of their burden. And I've had to be in a healthy space. I've had to recognize I can't be that for everyone. So if somebody comes to me, it's not that I'm going to be like, sorry, I can't take that on. That's too much. But I can help them find the resources that they need and recognize that I can't be a counselor to the world. I've
Mhm.
got to draw boundaries. I've got to the more I take on, it thins me out from the people that God has placed in my life to love deeply. So I can't always be turning my kids away of sorry, I can't talk right now. I've got a line of people that I've got to minister to, you know.
Yeah.
We've got to there's the reality is we have to draw boundaries for our own mental and spiritual and relational health.
Yeah, I love that phrase, like, what is my portion? Or what
Right.
is my portion? And I think recognizing, because I was the one who was like, if you're hurting, I'm on the front row.
Right.
And I realized a couple of decades ago, I was part of a group of friends and I was kind of on the fringes of it. And there was another girl that was like kind of in, but a little bit on the fringes too. And one of the members of the group had like an epic tragedy, absolutely epic tragedy. And it was kind of like everybody circled the wagons and went to her house, this fairly large group, to kind of hold vigil. I wasn't able to go, but I remember one of the ladies talking later who was on the fringes of like, she's kind of backed away from me since then. It's almost like she doesn't want me in that close. And it really made me realize, and even more so as I've gone through my own, valleys, that there's a vulnerability in struggle and in
Mm-hmm.
grief that if we're really walking the thing out, there there are places that only the few should probably behold,
Yeah.
like for our own safety, because like the bottom of the pit is messy,
Yeah.
right? And I think of
Right.
my own pit that I had a pit experience over the past couple of years, and like I mean I was so devastated. I was wailing on the phone with my best friend, and I just remember like someone who didn't know me like she did could really hurt me in that place. I was wide open and so raw, and I'd grown enough to know this is this is literally for an audience of like a few at
Yeah.
most. And that I knew she could hold the space. She was with me when my dad died. Like she was at the funeral when my dad died. She's been my person for 20 plus years. And
Mm-hmm.
so there is this sense of it's almost like don't throw your pearls before swine,
Yeah.
right? And so that doesn't mean don't share it, but
Mm-hmm.
like whether it's someone who is in the role of paid counselor, paid medical professional, or whatever, whose job it is to hold that space for that. Like you talk about boundaries, it's an hour, right? I am with you for an hour. And
Yeah.
then the timer goes, and you know what? I trust that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And there are times where we don't feel like we're going to be okay when we walk out that door, but that's where the Lord holds us, and we don't make room for him if we think we need that person instead.
Right.
And then those couple of safe people. And what's supposed to happen, the design, I think, based on what you're saying, Heather, is that it bonds us together, it creates a deeper intimacy in that relationship. And this, these are our people. My best friends walked with me through all kinds of things, and same with me with her. And this is 20 plus years of investment. That's a different deal than my Bible study, as much as I love them.
Right.
It's a different level of depth. And so showing up for them might look like a meal or a text or a voice message prayer, but we're not weeping over the phone with each other except for the closest ones. So I
Yeah.
think that's so good, is it's like it's actually a gift we give to the other person too, to not trample into their sacred spaces.
Yes. Yes. I think that it's so weird. I've never talked about this out loud with anybody, but I think sometimes we can almost get jealous that we're not the person to be there with them.
Yeah.
Like why can't I be the person, and instead, like, what if you flip that and said, I'm celebrating that they found what they needed,
Yes.
and I can be for them there in other ways, but I'm so glad that they found what they needed in their moment, and that's not mine to hold. I love you,
Yes.
like you said, coming back to that prayer, God, what is mine to do?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally resonate with that jealousy. And that's, I think, where I started in my 20s, is I got my strokes from being the one. Oh, I'm so good at being there for people in the hard
Yeah,
spaces. Like, give me a funeral, I'm there. And you know what?
right,
Like, I actually am really good at that because I've had enough of my stuff, but like I'm not the best person for my neighbor,
right.
Like she doesn't want me there. She doesn't know me well enough. And so I'm really like, that's a gift the Lord's given me, to hold space. And so sometimes he'll give me funny appointments where somebody will be going through a crisis and I'm the one that they call, and I'm like, we really weren't that close, but okay. And
Yeah.
it's funny because then they'll walk away later. And I used to
Mhm.
get my feelings kind of hurt. And now I'm realizing, okay, like they didn't have that anywhere else. And
Mhm.
so the Lord kind of like positioned me to hold that space for a little bit, and that's okay. I mean, it wasn't draining, but then I mean, if I get to the point where I think, oh, now we're friends, then
Mhm.
then I'm out of order, right?
Yeah.
Because now I'm like, oh, it was for a season,
Yeah.
and now they're okay and they're healed up and they're glad that they're not messy anymore, and I'm not the conversation that they want to have because I know I'll go deep and they're just buttoned up and
Yeah.
okay now. But yeah, I think this is so good, that feeling of, are we finding purpose in being the person, you
Yeah.
know? And then if so, what are we where are we failing to serve because it's not meeting a need that it's not stroking the ego like we want.
And again, it's so complicated to figure out that line. So that's why we have to be women of prayer and say, God, show me what you want me to do today. Who
Yeah.
do you want me to minister to? And
Yeah.
then stay in those boundaries, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's no escaping that we need a, a daily communion with the Father, because and even with that, we're going to fall in ditches and be like, oh, whoops. I was
Yeah, it was
getting
too
my needs
far.
met by being helpful. Whoops, I was being too revelatory. Even as you were talking, like, I think I'm a little too revelatory with my children, because my backstory was my parents never fought and then they got divorced. So
Mm,
like we
yeah.
we do let our kids see a little bit more of like us working through hard things, and part of that is we're a homeschool family in a small
All
house, so
right.
there's only so many places to hide.
You haven't soundproofed the whole house.
Yeah, I believe it or not. Now this office is in a closet, so I guess we could talk in here. But although my husband's so funny, it's like it gets really hot in this room, which I'm like I love because I like to be all cozy, and we'll have calls in here sometimes. He's like, "This is miserable. I am so unhappy right now." So yeah, there are places we can hide, but there, I think it's a good reminder, and that's the beauty of having these conversations, which are just such a gift, Heather, where it's just like, oh, there's another place to shift and to look at. We're
Yeah.
never like friend, you're going to fall in a ditch on this one because
Yeah.
it's authenticity it's it's the real deal.
It's
Like,
hard.
yeah.
And it's gonna sting sometimes, like we're gonna get it wrong, not only fall in the ditch, but we're gonna be embarrassed. We're gonna feel like, oh, I was vulnerable and then somebody took advantage of it. So it's not to say that it doesn't come without its struggles, but it's so worth it because you can't experience the fullness of community and the fullness of belonging and being loved and giving love without opening yourself up to the pain as well.
Well, and this reminds me, I didn't even think about this the whole time we were talking, is I really love Brene Brown's work on
Mm.
wholehearted living. And it's this exact thing of like, when she started her work, she started out as a shame researcher, as a social worker. She's
Mhm.
an academic social worker. And she like basically came to realize that the people who lived wholehearted lives were the people who were willing to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And that was like a really unhappy realization for her. But this is, yeah, the only way to experience, if we look at emotions as a spectrum and the human experience as a spectrum, the only way to feel love and joy and connection and value and worthiness and all of those things is to be willing to face moments of shame and embarrassment and that kind of like, I mean, vulnerability, basically that feeling of falling on our faces. And that's why courage is one of her values, as it's one of mine too. And she talks about, daring greatly. That she has this great story. This guy came up to her and was like, "Hey, I have to tell you a story about daring greatly." And she's like, "I've spoken enough to know that like something bad is coming." And he basically just talks about how he told his girlfriend that he loved her after hearing her speak, and that she broke up with him in response.
Oops.
I know. And he's like, I went back and I told my roommates, and they're like, man, you should have like dumped her first. You shouldn't have ever like exposed yourself like that. You're just exposing yourself to hurt. And then he's like, nah, man, I was daring greatly. And they're like, right on, man.
I love it. Love it.
It's so good. But I just think about like how much of our lives are we just tiptoeing around when really, you think about that young man and his willingness to say it, like to say where he was. What we get back is an answer.
Right.
There's like, we may not get the answer we want, but we know. Whereas when we're all kind of, pretending our sweaters are not threadbare,
Yeah.
then, there's no true intimacy.
No, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
We want to have the answer.
Yeah, exactly. As much as it hurts, it's like, do you want, years of wondering, or do you want to just have it out and go, okay.
There's a phrase that I've heard a couple times recently. I'm not even sure who originated it, but it is there's kindness is clarity. We
Brene
try to.
Brown says that
Is
too.
that
Yeah.
where it came from?
Yeah,
Okay,
it
so
might be hers.
all right, so I need to start crediting her when I say this, but but I feel that I hear that because we dance around subjects and we're not real with people and we don't say the things that need to be said, and then we just leave wondering and second guessing and chaos, and there's kindness and clarity.
This is reminding me, I want to go one more place if you're down,
Yeah,
because this has been a bit of a surprise to me. Brian and I are 15 years into marriage, and coming from a broken home, I remember describing to Brian, and this was his moment where he was like, "Oh, the divorce of your parents like really did a number on you."
yeah.
But I remember telling him, I was like, because we had a fight and I was like devastated. And I said, when we got married, we had a whole pie. Our love is like a pie. And when we got married, we had a whole pie. And every time we fight, a bite is getting taken out of the pie. And the goal is for one of us to die before the pie disappears. And he was like, really? That's what you think?
I didn't mean to laugh. I should
I
have
mean,
laughed.
it makes me laugh because it like bless my sweet little 20 something heart, right? Like that's what I walked into, because that's what I saw. It's
Right,
just like there wasn't enough love to
right,
outlast the years that they lived, was kind
right,
of how, I don't know if my parents described it to me that way, but that's kind of how it seemed, because it all seemed so mysterious if they were married and then they weren't. And they were married
right.
for 25 years. It was a long marriage.
Yes, and so
Um,
that whole view of like there's a limited amount,
yeah.
where I found, we our love has evolved over the years. We've learned new things about each other, that it's a new opportunity to love, it's a new opportunity to forgive, it's a new opportunity to understand that person. It just keeps morphing into bigger and bigger, there are days that are a real struggle where we're like, man, I don't know if we're gonna make it.
Right.
Even 25 years in,
Yeah.
there's days like that. Thankfully, we've not had those days on the same day, but
Right.
but then we forgive and we move on, and we like, so much of it is about being real with one another and not letting things fester, and
Yes.
talking about it and saying, this is why my feelings are hurt, and
Yeah.
really listening and hearing, and keep coming back. We keep coming there. Sarah Groves had a song. It was like, keep rolling back to the middle, like, because it was talking about an
Oh, in
argument.
bed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, keep rolling back to the middle, and that's what marriage has been, like, we get in our arguments, we get in our fights, we get things we don't understand, but at the end of the day, we keep coming back to, you are my person, and I choose to love, and I choose to understand, and because we keep doing that, our love continues to grow. So
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of food. It's not a pie. It's some food that's growing.
Yeah, yeah, it's like yeast in the bread, right? There's
There
like
you
a
go.
spiritual component to it. And I think that's the thing that the surprise for me was love grows because the knowing grows. And so I think that's one of the things that sometimes I forget in this conversation of authenticity, even though Brian and I, by the grace of God, are living it, is that there's deeper levels of being seen and known,
Right.
even within our most intimate relationships.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like in you talked about it a little bit of like we keep coming back to each other. Anything else you would add as far as how do we walk out authenticity in our deepest relationships, in marriage, maybe just camp in marriage because I feel like children gets a little bit different.
Yeah.
But so what else would you add to that? Because, like we've got patterns that we're in, and there are the dances of our, like the way arguments play out and the way connection plays out. And so what does it look like to grow in authenticity in the marriage relationship?
I think it is, continuing to be open and sharing, and revealing the deepest parts of ourselves, but also being a safe space for them to do the same. It's truly hearing them. It's recognizing that he's got a point, even if he said it in a way I wasn't ready to hear, or
Wasn't
even,
overly fond of.
I wasn't overly fond of, or maybe he didn't say it the right way, but
Uh-huh.
he's got a point. Like, I think that's one of the beautiful and most frustrating things about marriage, is that God brings people who are very different. And we're opposites in so many different ways, but that's exactly why I fell in love with him, because I need those things to round my edges, and I need those things
Yes.
to push me outside of my boundaries. So when
Yes.
I'm most frustrated with him, I have to remember, like, come back to, okay, what help me separate the wheat from the chaff. Like, what is it that I need to hear in this moment, and where do I need to be corrective? Where do I need to be vulnerable? Where do I need to listen? Um, and yeah, there's just, for us, it's been, um, it's not an option to disengage.
Yeah.
I can't, like, I could have a silent treatment with the best of them, but what is that doing for us?
Mm-hmm.
Is that healing or hurting? Am I driving a wedge? If I want to move forward and I want to continue to have a healthy relationship, I have to keep coming back to conversation and listening and talking and sharing and being vulnerable, being the one to say, okay, I'm gonna end the silent treatment. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna bring him a bowl of ice cream downstairs when I,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the olive branch out there, whether, like, not get into this keeping score, and he's the one that needs to apologize first. I'm gonna apologize for what my part is, and move forward, because it's not
Yeah.
helping either of us to continue to pull apart.
Yeah. Brian, my husband, has such a great line that has become both of ours, which is I'm on your side.
Yeah.
And there have been times, especially in our early years, where that didn't feel true because I didn't understand that there aren't like it felt like and one of my friends is in getting her master's in counseling, and she said, you know, that it's all about learning to fight the problem instead of one another.
Yeah.
Which I love that language, and it's been really helpful for me to picture that. But that like unity is the goal, right? For
Right.
us to be united under God and operating in love. And so then, if he says it in a way I wouldn't have liked, right? I mean, I used to go 10 rounds over just that, but you didn't say that. He's like, but that's what I meant. Like, that's not what you
Right.
said. Okay, well, like, that's not helpful.
Right. Right.
Right? But I love that because I love what you said of just being the one to extend the olive branch and recognizing, oh, I love what you said, like recognizing he has a point, he has a perspective. And we had a very powerful moment in our marriage just a couple of years ago where something went down that was really hard for me. And when we got to the bottom of it, his his intention was so beautiful of what he wanted to do, and because he wanted to be there for me, in one way, he'd actually missed another thing that was more important for me. But like, it was the intention was, I'm working so hard to be there for you. I don't want to let you down. And that was one of his things that he was walking. It's like, I don't want to let you down. And how sweet is that? Right. But
Yeah.
I had no idea because the end result just felt, you know, thought like inconsiderate.
Right.
And I think there are more of those moments than we realize when we're married to a good man. And I
Yeah.
recognize, not everybody is, that there are very hard situations and dynamics where there
Yeah.
is manipulation, control, abuse.
Right.
But if we're not, and if that's the case, all the more need for strong support, among a trusted few. But
Yeah.
that when we're in a healthy marriage where we can show our threadbare sleeves, that it actually deepens intimacy. And I love what you said of like, we just really need to be mindful that that goes both ways, because our
Mhm.
men are often very willing to hold the other side for us. And sometimes they'll forget that they need to have the same with us as a safe place to fall.
Right, right. Like you said, obviously there's the outliers and abusive situations and all those kind of stuff. But assuming you are with a good man who is seeking your best, I think I need to assume the best in him, assume the best intentions.
Yeah.
That he's not out to get me. He's not trying to make my life miserable. He's not, fill in the blank. Like if there is something going on, either like I really need to hear something from him, or he's carrying a burden that's really hard for him right now. Maybe it was a rough day at work, maybe it was somebody said something to him. So I assume the best, that like, okay, he's not just a complete jerk, there's something else at play here. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And I'll just slip this in here. I know I've talked about it in this podcast or in our podcast conversations before, but probably not with with you, Heather. Just one of my favorite little like shortcuts is knowing my husband's love language, and he the same for me. So he will offer a hug very quickly because physical touch is one of mine, and like my blood pressure just drops every time he does that. And then for me, it's acts of service. And
Hmm.
so doing the things that are most important for him is a way that, like, for him, it's all about the kitchen. Is the kitchen clean? Right.
Yeah.
So when sometimes if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, I will go in and start washing dishes. And I'm like, I'm doing this because I love him. And then my heart softens because I'm acting in obedience even when my heart's not quite in the right place yet. And so when he comes out and he sees me doing that, then, or I'll wash a few dishes and then I'm ready to go and have the conversation, right? Because I think about all the times that he's washed dishes and all of the ways that he serves our family, and then it's like, okay, he's not this bad guy that's making my life harder.
Right.
This is my person.
Right.
Okay, so I'm so glad we went down that side. Little tangent. So authenticity, we're gonna let people see. I just keep thinking about the Velveteen Rabbit. Like, this is when you become real. When
Yeah.
you're squishy and you're threadbare and your nose is rubbed off, all the velvet's gone. So we're going to let people see us that way, especially those in our inner circle. We're going to recognize the need for boundaries. We're going to be there to see other people, but recognize that we don't have to save everybody.
Yes.
And we're going to give ourselves permission to have those inner circles and those wider boundaries, but let everybody know I'm human too, with all the threadbareness and everything that goes along with that. Heather, anything else that you would say? Any final thoughts?
Again, I would just come back to, and I know we talked about this last time too. I would just come back to surrender and prayer. There's so many things it's hard to get right in our marriage, in our parenting, in our leadership, in our where drawing the lines between boundaries and being obedient. And I would just again pray that prayer of surrender of God. I am yours. What do you want me to do? Search me, reveal anything in me that's not like you, and grant me the wisdom to do what you've called me to do.
So sit at the Father's feet and let him tell you what's next.
Mm-hmm.
So, Heather, this has been such a gift. Thank you for being here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. And what do my people know? Where are they going to find you? Is that going to be in the show notes in
Yeah,
March?
so the best way to find me is to I keep a regular blog, try to keep a regular blog at heatherday.net. You can find me there, find resources, and all my socials are linked from there. And I would love to connect with you. I'd love to hear your stories and just to make the connection.
I love it. Yes. So reach out to Heather. Listen to our other conversation on money and spirit, right? Money and spirit or money and the spirit?
Money and spirit.
Money and spirit. Read her book, Money and Spirit, and then be sure to check the show notes because I'm sure we'll be even clearer on what exactly is going on in March. And you're going to have to go and check it out and see what it is. It's going to be amazing. Okay. And then to you, friend, go be brave. Take that moment of bravery, like Heather talked about when she was struggling so deeply. Write down what's really hard and hand it to someone if you need to. But just say it out loud if you're in that place of darkness. If you're in that place of ministry, be mindful that you have a trusted few around you where you can be fully revelatory and get the support you need so that you are well served, filled up to overflowing so that you can pour out well. Recognize that your people may need to hear you're a human being too, while still maintaining those boundaries and that sense of separateness that's important. And if you're just walking along the way, just be on the lookout for where is the place to serve and be present, and where is the place to maybe just from a distance send a prayer and let it be. It's not your work to do it all. Till next time, friend, you've got this because he's got you.
Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again. And never forget, you've got this because he's got you.